Reading 46 from the Psychological Commentaries on the Teaching of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky by Dr. Maurice Nicoll, Volume 2. Birdlip, November 25th, 1944. On seeing life in a new way, as a means, not an end. Self-observation cannot increase without the help of the ideas of the work. Fortunately, the work teaching gives many angles from which to observe oneself. You cannot observe yourself if you have no standpoint from which to observe. You must, so to speak, get out of yourself in order to observe yourself. Otherwise, you are yourself as you are. Is this clear? An increase of consciousness of oneself, which is the first aim of the work, means that one gets further back inside oneself so that one sees what lies in front of oneself. That is, what one took as oneself. This direction, as you know, leads inwards towards higher centers, through higher parts of ordinary centers. This direction, gained from increasing self-observation, leads slowly to an increasing consciousness both of what one is now and what one has been. All this leads to the only possibility of change. Now, this process, this becoming more deeply conscious of oneself and seeing oneself continually in a quite new light, in the light of the work, is called awakening. It is like an advance inwards against an enemy with here and there very tough points defended, which must be surrounded and which can only be slowly reduced. This entry into oneself is called in the work awakening. Here, what the work teaches is very clear and should be grasped by us. It is expressed also in the Gospels, but obscurely. The work says that a man must first of all awaken. This takes a long time. When he has awakened enough, then he must die. When he dies, then he can be reborn. These are the 3 steps in rebirth, that is, transformation. There is no other way. To try to die to oneself before one has awakened to oneself is to do something in a quite wrong and foolish order, and so leads to no result. To try to die to something before one has awakened to it and seen it is wrong. One is not yet ready. One does not know yet what to do, what to die to. If you try to die before you are awake, you have not the conscious force to die to the thing in question. One may try and fail. Then the danger arises of becoming negative, of feeling some variety of despair or hopelessness. When this happens, the whole sense and feeling of the work may become all distorted, owing to the sense of failure. This is a very serious kind of temptation to be exposed to. We may mistake it for being passive. We may mistake it for many other things, but the state is a very dangerous one because we are letting in negative eyes that hate the work, by the back door as it were, and very soon all feeling of the work becomes dim and even disappears. When this happens, we can always know at once that we are in bad company in ourselves. That is, going with wrong eyes. Sometimes we have to be in bad company, and this constitutes a struggle, and one from which only by not identifying is it possible to escape with any success. I say by not identifying, for reasoning is useless. When one reasons, one can come to any conclusion that one likes. But with emotional perception, the case is quite different. Good and evil in us can only be seen by emotional perception, in the light of the work. we use our reasoning mainly to justify. Now, tonight, I want to talk to you about how in the long stages of awakening the ideas of this work are necessary, and how, if we have not ideas from which to observe ourselves, we cannot awaken from the sleep which life has induced in us long ago from infancy. The sleep which life has induced in us has been formed by the ideas of life that we were born into, and to awaken we must have ideas from another source. You cannot awaken from opium by taking more opium. You must find some antidote to opium to awaken from its powers over you. How can you awaken from life? By means of life. How can you awaken from what life has built up in you by example, by suggestion, by imitation, by imagination, unless you have another system of ideas that does not belong to life? As you know, there is a cosmic reason for the sleep of humanity, and each fashion, each period of life, acts on man. A man even believes that because he can laugh at the customs of the last generation, their clothes, manners, and so on, he is therefore more awake. He does not see how clever the hypnotism is, and so thinks he is awake by comparison. But actually he is just as much asleep himself. So what can awaken us in a real sense? Only teaching can awaken us, only ideas that come from those in every age who, overcoming the hypnotism of life, have become conscious and have found the way out from the prison we all live in and do not notice, the prison of cosmic hypnotism, this prison of oneself as laid down mechanically. Now, to begin to free oneself from this prison that life has built into us by the ideas of everything we have imitated and absorbed, as was said, new ideas are necessary, and so a new outlook. The idea that we are not one but many contradictory I's is one of the work ideas that starts at the exit of this prison in which we are confined without realizing it, and have to be, to begin with. The idea that we are not one is an idea that stands outside the ideas of life, the ideas life has planted in you. However, few people will apply this idea, even if they hear it many times, because it seems to them they are one. Beyond the prison of ourselves in which we are confined without knowing it, there lie a series of ideas that can lead to our own freedom once they are rightly understood. Mr. O says in his last book that an idea is a very delicate and powerful instrument that can easily be wrongly handled. Surrounding us as we are, there are a number of ideas different from the ideas on which we are built. The idea of liberation has always existed and led to all sorts of revolutions. People feel vaguely that there is something else, some kind of freedom that they do not possess. But as a rule, they take it in terms of existing conditions, of outside rearrangements, of murdering some class or other, and so on. These ideas of liberation that surround us outside the prison refer to ourselves and not to material conditions. We are surrounded by liberating ideas, whether we feel them or not. If we have magnetic center, we feel that liberating ideas exist. But we may feel that they lie somewhere in some distant school in Tibet, for example. Certainly the teaching of the liberating ideas may be in some distant school, but if you were to go to such a school, you would find that these liberating ideas are not in a school, but that their action lies in the effect that they have on yourself and the response that you yourself make to them. Schools, esoteric schools, transmit ideas that can liberate us. These ideas come from those who have liberated themselves, and this knowledge has always been handed on. But these ideas that are taught are similar to the ideas that the work teaches. The work teaches liberating ideas, but the action of the ideas will not be effective unless a person begins to think about them, to feel he must apply them to himself. The illusion that there is such a thing as higher education, that you only have to be taught in order to reach a new state, is quite wrong. There is no redemption possible for any of us by some school of teaching unless we learn and understand and do the teaching that is taught. In the Gospels it is said, "The kingdom of God cometh not with observation, neither shall they say, Lo, here, or Lo, there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you." It is not something outside, that if you would only join, you would be liberated. When it is said in the Gospels that the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven is within you, by the kingdom of heaven is meant a state in which the hypnotism of life no longer acts on us, and in which we are invested with the influence of ideas coming from a quite different source. Now let us take one of the ideas of the work, from which we are taught to observe ourselves, and from which we must think and build up within ourselves a new point of view. There is the idea that man cannot do. Have you ever thought about this idea? Remember that an idea is comparable with a very delicate and complicated machine, which, if handled wrongly, may do you very great harm. If you were to handle a great dynamo wrongly without understanding its connections, you might easily be killed. Now, this idea that man cannot do is like a great dynamo. It can furnish you with light or it can kill you. You can take it wrongly, as I have seen many people take it, as when they say some such thing as this: "Well, if we cannot do, what is the good of trying anything?" This is a quite wrong understanding of the idea that man cannot do. Everyone, said G on one occasion, is doing the only possible thing that he can do. Everything that is happening at this moment is going the only way it can possibly go. End quote. He was talking about mechanicalness. As long as man is asleep, things will go the only way they can possibly go, by an infinite number of lines of cause and effect. But the work teaches that a man can come under new laws, and ultimately that he can reach a higher state of himself in which he can do, in which he has real will. Certainly such a state is very far from us at present, but in applying this idea to ourselves that man cannot do, we have first of all to notice, to observe over a long period, what it means in this personal application. We have to observe ourselves by means of this idea of the work. Perhaps, very gradually, we realize one of the meanings of this tremendous idea. We begin to see that what we call our doing is really not doing, but mechanicalness. We realize that it does. Now, this is a preliminary stage which can lead to new experiences of oneself. It is a very good thing to have new experiences of oneself, and if this occurs by means of the light of the work, these experiences will not make us desperate, but on the contrary, open up quite new aspects of understanding. From this right realization of what it means that we cannot do, we will begin to see what it means that mankind cannot do in general. Our understanding will no longer be theoretical, but will begin to be practical. We will then understand the necessary idea that life for us cannot be an end in itself. People who are very much in the physical senses believe that life can be so far improved that it will become an end in itself, that it will lead somewhere. But the work does not take life as an end in itself, because it says that life is under a great number of mechanical laws that always keep it in more or less the same condition. The work teaches that we must take life as a means to a quite different condition. The object of the work is that we should awaken. It is solely about something that man can do to himself. For this reason, the work says that man is created and hopes. For this reason, the work says that man is created a self-developing being. As long as a man takes life as an end in itself and hopes sooner or later to reach some kind of success and triumph in life, he does not understand the aim of this work. He is confusing the issue. If such a man takes up this work and finds that it does not lead to success in life, for example, he will become disappointed. But the work is not about such an aim. The work is about oneself and about a certain development in regard to life and to its accidents that can transform our whole being. If you can keep right in yourself towards the work, if you understand the direction of the work, then whatever happens in life will not destroy you. You will not be surprised at what happens in life, because you will know that life is like that man cannot do. Then, success and failure in life will mean less and less to you. You will not expect life to give you what only the work can give you.